Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about duplicate stitch on crochet. So you can see I've got my fabric here. This is slip stitch through the back loop. This is worked sideways. And the first thing that we're going to do is start to identify which is the right side and the wrong side. So I'm calling the right side where you can see that these little V's are pointing up with the V side down. I'm calling the wrong side the side that looks like it has V's that are upside down. So the little point is at the top. So make sure you're working on the right side when you start this. This is a super stretchy fabric, so you really just want to start to look for the column or the stitch that you're working on depending on your pattern and the chart that you're working off of. I'm going to start working, this letter is actually an E, so we're going to start working into the next stitch, which happens to be onto the left side of the stitch previously worked. So I'm bringing up my yarn in the V at the bottom of the V of the stitch that I want to work. And you can see how that stitch kind of goes up and looks like it kind of goes around the bottom of the V of the stitch above it. And that's where I want to put my tapestry needle and pull up my yarn to make 1/2 of the duplicate stitch. So you can see it looks like a little half of a V. The stitch, the white stitch is going behind the stitch. So I'm just going to take my yarn back down through the point of the V. I always pull mine too tight. Don't be like me. You can always fluff it out if you need to. And we're going to continue working up that column. So instead of going sideways, I'm going to bring my yarn right up into the point of the V of the stitch immediately above the one that I was working. So kind of right in between those two white legs there. And then go up one stitch. Insert your yarn underneath both legs of the V. Pull that through to create 1/2 of the V stitch. And then you're going to take your needle, right back into the bottom of the V. Don't even worry about what the back side looks like. If you're following along with my End ALS beanie, it's all going to get hidden behind. Make sure that everything looks fluffed up. If you pull it too tight, it'll start to, like I did right there, it will start to look like just a little too stringy. So, just make sure that you've fluffed it up enough. And I'm going to keep working up this column. So coming up in the bottom of the V stitch, and you should feel that the needle pulls pretty easily through that. If you feel like it's catching, maybe take the needle out, try it again. Up underneath the stitch above, the one that you're working duplicate stitch on. Yep, I still don't like that one. Too tight. There we go. And down into the bottom of the V again. You can see I'm using a double strand of yarn here. So when I'm using the double strand, I like for those strands to lay kind of side by side. I don't want them to be crossed over each other. It just gives it a cleaner look in my opinion. One more vertical stitch. So working into the bottom of the V. Now you can work either way. It doesn't matter whether you insert your needle from left to right or from right to left. It probably depends on which hand is your dominant hand and which one you want to use. I'm going the opposite way. I'm left-handed, so I typically go the other way, but really do what feels comfortable for you. All right, complete that V-stitch right back in. You can see that my strands of yarn are a little bit crossed here, so I'm just going to work them until they lie a little bit flatter. So now we're going to start working horizontally, so I'm going to work into the stitch next to the duplicate stitch that I just worked. So kind of line up the V's, make sure that you're going into the bottom of the V that you want to work. So it looks a little low right now, but as soon as I go into the stitch above it and pull it through, you can see that that V-stitch is going to line up immediately next to the one to the left. And go back into the bottom of the V. There we go. And one more stitch to the right, up through the bottom of the V, behind the stitch, immediately above it, and back down into the point of the V at the bottom. Nice. Make sure you're taking a look, make sure everything looks okay. You can kind of fiddle with it, but that's all there is. This is really similar to duplicate stitch on knitting. You can see that this fabric, this is crochet, but it looks a lot like knitting, and so duplicate stitch happens in almost exactly the same way. And you can see how some of those letters stretch out. That's one of the things that on your project you want to be aware of, how the letters are going to stretch. But otherwise, you guys are good to go.